Ready, Joe?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, Joe was just saying that I work for CPS. I'm a conservatorship caseworker out of the Brenham office. Brenham covers quite a few counties, but I cover Washington and Grimes, and then we also cover Madisonville, and Burleson County. When we're fully staffed, we have 6 caseworkers, but we're hardly ever fully staffed. But we are right now. Yay. I'm going to kind of give you all the breakdown about how CPS works so that you have an understanding about when we get the case versus investigations or family-based safety services or whatnot. When an investigation is called in that there's risk of abuse or neglect going on in a family, depending on if it's a P1 or a P2, will determine how fast the investigator has to get out to the house to assess the situation. I know a P1 is priority 1, and that's 24 hours. I believe a P2 is 72 hours to get out and make contact with the family.
The 24 hours is P1?
Yes, ma'am.
P2 is 72?
I believe so. I believe so. And the investigator will go out and they will investigate the situation. They'll talk to the kids, and depending on the accusations, they might take photographs, they might record, or if it's something like sexual abuse, they might set up a CAC interview, like a forensic interview, where specialists are trained to ask those types of questions for kids. At the end of their investigation, they'll determine whether or not that it was ruled out and the factors were controlled and there's no reason for us to be involved in their lives, and we'll exit and never bother them again. Or they'll determine that there is some risk and the family could benefit from some services, but it's not serious enough to take conservatorship of the children. And they'll go to family-based safety services, at which CASA still, I believe, gets appointed to those cases, but I could be wrong. If they do decide that we need to take temporary managing conservatorship, then people like me get the case. And we have the case for 12 months. We can have it extended one time under special circumstances. If it's in the 10th month and mom just turned around, she just started getting it together, we could ask the judge, can we extend for 6 more months to give a little more time to work on the case? At the end of the 12 months, or even before, it doesn't have to be 12 months. If the worker's working the case really hard and CASA and everybody agrees that the family has made a life change, then we can return earlier. We can return, at 6 months, at 7 months, whatever we deem is ready for returning. The process for that is we set up services for the parents. We'll set them up with counseling, drug and alcohol assessments, random drug screenings. We'll monitor whether or not they're, trying to look for work, or they have legal employment. Do they have transportation? If they have their kids back, how will they get them to and from? How will they meet their needs? If we decided that they're to a point to move forward towards family reunification, we'll start doing unsupervised visits. Throughout the 12 months, even if we're not working towards family reunification, we still set up visits, but they're supervised visits. A lot of caseworkers do them in the office. They have a window with a little monitor where you can talk. I like to do them at like McDonald's or the park, because I feel like that's a real life setting, and I can pretty much hear or see everything that's going on, and I can see them in their natural way, like them being a real parent, not them in this glass with me on the other end watching every move they make. But that also changes with how serious the family is. How, can I trust that the parents will be appropriate if I'm not in ears link? So I like to do them outside the office, and you guys can come supervise the visits at any time. If you want to see how mom and dad or grandma or whoever it is are interacting with the children, just ask your caseworker, when's the next visit I'd really like to come watch. And you can come watch whether it's at McDonald's, whether it's at the park, whether it's at the CPS office, you can come watch.
And you can identify yourself to the parents.
Yes, ma'am.
So-and-so, well, they know you by then probably.
Yes, ma'am.
Has it been your experience probably that kind of with more frequent visits and so forth, obviously we would learn more about the family, and the family be much more receptive or open to our observation.
Yes, and I can tell you this for sure. You're going to get a lot further with the families than I am, because they know that I'm employed by CPS, and you know, they don't really trust me, because, you know, I'm with the agency that took their children. I'm with the agency that's telling them all these things they need to do in order to get their kids back, where you guys are volunteers. Y'all are just community members that are there to help. You're not there to point fingers or make accusations or do anything. So I know that a lot of times the cost of volunteers are much more closer to the families than what us. We try, but there's always going to be a barrier there for us that's not going to be there for y'all. And there's a lot of policies that we have to follow that y'all don't necessarily have to follow. For an example, one of my favorite ones I like to give is we had a little girl who desperately needed to be homeschooled. She went through a sexual abuse situation. She was not doing well in the school. She was not doing well around her peers. And just for a little while needed to be taken out, homeschooled, counseling, stuff like that. We cannot allow homeschool, ever. CPS cannot authorize homeschool. But the CASA worker gave a remarkable report to the judge, who typically judges don't like approving homeschool because it takes them out of that social, you know, stage. And the CASA worker gave a report of how much it would benefit the child, and he court-ordered homeschool. So the judge can court-order anything.
Who did the homeschooling at that point?
The foster parent. Mm-hmm.
So
She's been requesting it.
Okay.
The therapist had recommended it, yes, and the foster mom, she got licensed especially for this child. She was a neighbor down the street of her great-grandparent who was just too elderly to care for her indefinitely. So they fell in love with her and got fostered for her. And they homeschooled their son. So when all this happened and came out in the CAC interview and everything, she's like, can I homeschool her for a little while? And I was like, no, you can't, I'm sorry. But CASA can give reports and override there's going to be times that you disagree with the caseworker. And it's going to happen. But it's good to have those different perceptions to balance out ideas and what, you know, we all come from different walks of life, different life experiences, and a lot of those things is what helps. There's really no right answer when we're dealing with these kids' lives. So we just have to try to think of what's best for the child, and I might be blinded by something that you're not blinded by. And it might be preventing me from letting child go live with grandma or letting child go live with dad who's a non-offending parent, where you might not be blinded by what I'm saying. You're like, why wouldn't we? And you know, y'all can give us ideas, or the judge, to rule in favor of what is best for the child. I mean, that's what the courts are there for, is to ultimately make the decision. Once conservatorship gets the case, I will have to warn y'all, we do a ton of paperwork. So if you ever feel like your caseworker's just not caring, probably not exactly the case. They might not seem like they care, but they might be buried in a bunch of different things. So if you typically, and I know for the ones that are in my office, if you go talk to them and say, I feel like you've been ignoring me, what's going on? They'll tell you whatever you need to know. I'm one of those you have to ask me for therapy notes. I get so many, you know, of all my different kids that I separate them in folders, and then I never see them again until I read them, and then I don't see them again until I'm doing my monthly summary or until I'm going out to see the kid and I read. So if I don't get asked for them, a lot of times I won't send them out.
How often do you see the children?
We have to see the children at least once a month in the placement. And we have to see every parent once a month. But our parents can be attempted contacts. So if I'm trying to get a hold to Sally and trying to get a hold to Sally and trying to get a hold to Sally, she's ignoring me, she's off in prison, she's doing drugs, she's doing whatever, I can document all the times that I attempted to contact her and check the attempted box, and then my numbers, my reports will still be okay. For kids, you never ever can have an attempted contact, ever. But if a child is placed outside of our region, like if a Washington County child gets removed and they're placed in Belleville, I cannot go see that child. I have to get an ICU worker to go see that child. And that is a caseworker just like me, but that's in that region. So I then have to, that's just another set of ears and eyes that y'all have to depend on to get you, which they're supposed to document, and they usually do a really good job about documenting. I saw so-and-so, this was our conversation, and to where I know everything that's going on. I often do break the rules and go see them anyway, and just don't document as my travel or anything. It's mainly, you know, I guess the state wanting to save money. And we happen to be in a really strange spot where a lot of our kids will get placed in Houston or Belleville, and Houston's closer than Austin. Or I've had to drive to Dripping Springs, which is start of the hill country, but I couldn't go to Belleville to see my kids because we're in that weird section where the region lines are right there. Y'all have access to everything. Y'all can have access to school reports, to therapy notes, to doctor's notes, to any notes we have. Y'all can come up and read case files whenever you want to schedule a time to come read case files.
And it's important to know that, too, CASA can get that information from the therapist or the school directly from the therapist in the school. You do not have to get it from the caseworker.
Yeah, if you get tired of asking, or maybe the caseworker says, I haven't got it yet, yeah, you definitely can send that order that from the courts when you're appointed, and they'll send it to you themselves directly. And that way you know you're getting the information. And there's times where I don't have information, and I'll call CASA and say, hey, did you get that report? Can you send it to me? We rely a lot on our CASA volunteers to pick up our slack, especially right now we're doing pretty good. Like I have like 22 kids on my caseload. Fresh out of training, I had like 40. And I was fresh out of training, so I really didn't even know forms and policies and timelines. We have to enter things within a certain amount of time. We have to have reports due within a certain amount of time. So that's when kids can be lost in the cracks if there's not another set of eyes out there looking on them, somebody else there trying to watch out for them. I brought this in case y'all were wanting to look at it. I think I made copies of everything we do last time. I can't remember. It was so much. We do all the court reports, just like you guys have to do y'all's court reports. We do the child's plans. A lot of times y'all might participate in the making of the child's plans. I have a lot of CASA workers, especially with the older teens, they go see them twice a month, take them out for a burger. That teen feels really comfortable talking to just his CASA volunteer. And it's a gentleman, and it's a teenage boy, and he loves when he comes. He's like, when's check coming? When's check coming? And that's another thing. Y'all can go see them at the placement too, whenever you want. And fortunately, correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, y'all can transport.
Yes.
Thank heavens. The CASA and Brian cannot transport, and it has been brutal at times. I really am not sure how they successfully do their thing, but okay. So once the removal happens and conservatorship gets it, we have what we call a family group conference. Y'all attend those as well, or at least the supervisor does. They might not have appointed the volunteer yet at that time, but the supervisor will attend the family group conference. And that has been new over the past few years. That's where the state is trying to collaborate with the family, with the department, to create a plan that would help them work towards family reunification. Used to, the caseworkers, supervisors used to say, you will do this. You are going to do that. Now we ask them, what do you think you need to be a successful parent? Like, what do you think you need that would make you fix the issues that got you involved with CPS in the first place? And we'll all create a service plan that will consist of goals and tasks. One goal might be to be able to provide a safe and stable environment for your child. So then those tasks would be depending on why the child was removed. Random drug screenings, alcohol drug assessment, and then following recommendations. Therapy. We'll have, one of the goals might be, living a criminal-free lifestyle if maybe police were involved when the children got removed. Sometimes our clients are on probation, which means then there's dual services running together, and I don't typically like to double book our clients. I feel like we require them to do a lot of running around. I try to find therapists that'll go to their home because most of them are not financially able to take off work, to go to their drug and alcohol classes, and then to go to their UA, the urinalysis that I set them up for, and then to go to their therapy session that I set them up for. So I always want to try to work with them and not set them up for failure. I want them to try to be successful if family reunification is our goal. CPS always has two goals. We have a